What is the difference between the budget A series and the more premium S series keyboards by Native Instruments? Are the S series keyboards 3 times better, being 3 times more expensive? Which keyboard is for which type of user? I will attempt to answer these questions in this video, where we're comparing the Komplete Kontrol A49 to the Komplete Kontrol S49 MK2 by Native Instruments. Let's get right into the video. There's a very big price difference between these keyboards, and if you judge it by the price, the Komplete Kontrol A49 doesn't really seem to be all that great, being 3 times cheaper. However, that is not the case, I can assure you. I've got a very detailed review of this keyboard and a comparison to the Arturia Keylab Essential 49. I will link it down in the description of the video if you're interested in that. And before we get into this, I've got to say that I bought the A49 with my own money, while the S49 was sent to me by Native Instruments. However, they don't dictate what I say in this review, so I'll make sure this is as unbiased as possible. Having said that, the S49 is definitely the better keyboard, but is it 3 times as good? Let's find out. Let's first look at the obvious differences between these keyboards. So the first difference are the actual sizes that these keyboards are available. The A series is available in 29, 49 and 61 key versions, and I would even say that the M32 is of the same family because it has the same control surface on the front panel. So this is one of the differences, because the S series is available in 49, 61 and there is a big 88 key version with realistic weighted piano keys. So looking at the front panel, the first obvious difference is the lack of the screens on the A49, while the S49 has the same screens as the machine controller. I also have a video about controlling the machine software with the S49. I will also link it down in the description of the video. I haven't yet made a video about using it to control Ableton Live, and when and if I make that video, I will link it also in the description of this video. So there are more buttons on the front panel of the S49, giving you more control over machine or over your DAW. Another pretty obvious difference is the lack of the light guide that's on the A49 that's available on the S49. These are these small LED lights here on top of the keys, and these are actually really helpful for using the scale feature. They show you which notes are actually from the scale that you have selected. They are also very useful for contact instruments, for battery, or basically for the Native Instruments products, where they indicate some special functionality that corresponds to a certain group of keys. For example, you can switch the articulation on orchestral instruments from the lower octaves, and this is marked with a different color on the S49. Or for example, on battery, you get different drums like kicks and snares having the same color, so you can see at a glance what kind of sound are you playing. So this is a nice addition, but by no means is it something of a deal breaker for the A49. The A49 is much more simple, it's a stripped down keyboard and it does the job really well. One thing that's also missing on the A49 is the MIDI interface. There's no MIDI in, there's no MIDI out. So basically, if you're gonna be using it with a hardware synth or with your external sound modules and all that kind of stuff, you will need to run the MIDI through your DAW using another USB MIDI interface. Again, not much of a problem because most of the synths and sound modules nowadays, they have built-in USB MIDI functionality. While the S49 has MIDI in, MIDI out, and it also has an additional pedal input, while the A49 only has one pedal input. The S49 also has an on and off button at the back, while with the A49 you need to unplug your USB cord to turn it off. There's the optional power supply for the S49. It is bright enough without the power supply, and the power supply is not included in the box. If we unplug the power supply, it becomes slightly less brighter. I'm not sure if you can see this all that well. It doesn't really make a huge difference. One thing to note about the power supply though of the S49, I read on the NI forum that the MIDI out doesn't work without the power supply. But I haven't been able to test it before publishing this video, so make sure you research that if controlling external gear from the Komplete Kontrol S series is something that's important to you. The S49 also has this touch strip thing here, another way to send MIDI control to your software to control some parameters. Haven't used that yet, but I'm glad that they've included proper mod wheel and pitch wheel on the S49 Mark II, because the previous generation, the Mark I, had touch strips instead of the wheels, which is not really ideal for me. Another thing that the A49 lacks that's available on the S49, this is the aftertouch functionality. So when you press down the keys harder, it activates an additional MIDI control, depending on how it's set up in your synthesizer or your sound module that you're using. You can send additional MIDI information to your instrument and make it more expressive that way if you press harder. And again, for a budget stripped down basic keyboard, the lack of aftertouch is not really a problem. In terms of a software bundle, the S series has the Komplete 13 Select, which is the same bundle that's included with the Machine Mark III. And it has some really high quality instruments such as Massive, Monarch, Drumlab, Raum, Faces, The Gentleman, Replica, Discovery Series West Africa, Scarpy, Rickenbacker Bass, Scarpy Mark I Vintage Organs, Hybrid Keys, Retro Machines, and so on and so on. A very comprehensive bundle and a very nice entry point into the Komplete ecosystem. While the bundle that's included with the A-series keyboard is still great for the price, to be honest, even though it's a bit more limited, actually a lot more limited. You get Monarch, The Gentleman, Reactor Prism, Scarpy Mark I, and so on and so on. But we have all the basics here, such as a Moog emulation, a Rhodes piano, an experimental polyphonic synth, a classic upright piano. So you have everything you need to get you started. And of course, they also both include a stripped down version of Ableton Live 11 and the Machine software. This is included with both keyboards. However, this is the Machine Essentials, which is not really that bad because it's exactly the same software as the full Machine software. However, the sounds that are included are stripped down, they are more limited, but still a very, very useful addition. And now for the most important part, the feel of the keys. If you watched my review of the Komplete Kontrol A49, what I said there was that this keyboard has probably the best keys among all the budget keyboards. And I still stand by that opinion. The keys are really, really good, feel really sturdy, semi-weighted keys. It's a custom Native Instruments keybed, and it feels really, really well for a budget keyboard. So the keys on the S49 are the Fatar keys, and they are higher quality. They track your velocity in a more consistent manner. The S49 is really nicer to play. I mentioned the difference about the aftertouch. And another difference that I haven't seen other reviews mention is that the keys on the A49, they have more travel. They are deeper, which is not really a problem for playing keys. However, for playing drums with the keyboard, and there's nothing wrong with playing drums with the keyboard, I think it's a pretty good interface for playing drums. However, the keys on the A49, due to their longer travel, are not that well suited to playing drums, while the keys on the S49 are excellent for playing drums as well as keyboard instruments. And definitely the difference in quality of the keys will probably be noticed by professional keyboard players and by more demanding users. However, these professional keyboard players and more demanding users won't feel like what are these when they play the A49. It's still pretty good and definitely isn't 3 times worse than the S49 as the price would suggest. The knobs, they are exactly the same knobs. They feel exactly the same, and they're exactly the same endless encoders found on the Maschine MK3. 4-directional joystick or encoder or whatever it's called. It's a bit different actually. The one on the S series is more clicky, and this one is smoother. I think it's not really an important difference. In terms of the buttons, these are kind of clicky and clacky, very noisy and very hard. Again, pretty acceptable for a budget keyboard, while these are more rubberized buttons and they feel excellent. Again, the same exact buttons that you find on the Maschine MK3. In terms of the wheels on the Komplete Kontrol A49, not bad at all, not bad at all, but they do have a bit more resistance than the wheels on the S series. And so I definitely prefer the wheels on the S series because, for example, when you do some funky pitch bends and want to do some vibrato with the pitch bend, it comes out nicer on the S series. So that's kind of the main difference between these keyboards. While everything feels good on the A49, on the S49 is just excellent. It's just super nice, super premium. It's like as good as it gets. The feel of the whole thing is as good as it gets on the S49. In terms of the overall build quality, not much of a difference, to be honest. The plastic on the A49 is still a very nice hard plastic. There is no flex to this one. Doesn't wiggle at all. Very sturdy. It's not really that light. And again, the S series is about as sturdy as the A series. However, it is heavier, presumably due to the heavier keys, to the weights that they have on the keys for that really nice semi-weighted feel. And if you look at the comparison chart on the Native Instruments website, you can see all the differences explained in detail. Of course, they both support the NKS integration, being able to control NKS compatible instruments through the Komplete Kontrol plugin in whatever DAW you are using, or directly in Native Instruments' own Maschine software. You can browse sounds from the hardware and have the parameter names on the display on both keyboards. However, the S49 has a huge advantage with this, with its very big colorful displays, while the display on the A49 is tiny and shows a very little amount of information. So you can't really tell at a glance what each knob is doing on the A49. A good thing to note here is that the knobs are touch sensitive, so you can touch the knob and it will display what parameter it is controlling on the display. But the S49 is much nicer, showing you everything at a glance. In terms of advanced DAW control, both support Logic Pro, X, GarageBand, Ableton Live, Cubase, Nuendo and Studio One, and I'm pretty sure the S series added support for Pro Tools recently. In terms of transport controls and DAW controls, control that the S series offers is slightly more detailed. You have more control over your session, and again, A series pretty decent control for the money. Okay, so who are these keyboards for? Which one should you buy? I think if you are on a budget, you will definitely not be disappointed by the A series keyboards. Like I said, excellent keyboards for the money, definitely a good all-around keyboard. And I like how Native Instruments haven't really put all the bells and whistles that other keyboard manufacturers put, but then they need to compromise on the quality and cut too many corners to get it to the price point of a budget keyboard. While Native Instruments, they don't give you too much stuff on the keyboard. However, whatever they give you is of very high quality, especially for a budget keyboard. So I think everyone will be happy with the A series keyboards, especially if you are a beginner or if you are not really a keyboard player. I don't think it makes sense to buy the S series unless there is a specific feature that you need. Maybe you need the screens with all the control that they give you, or maybe you need the MIDI in and MIDI out. However, I don't think it's worth paying such a huge price difference just for MIDI in and MIDI out. So I think this would be a secondary consideration. So again, for newbies or for people who are not really keyboard players, I think the A49 is excellent, although keyboard players will definitely enjoy it as well. And it's also more compact, more portable. As you can see, it is slightly less deep than the S49, so it will fit on your desk easier in terms of depth. And in terms of width, it is definitely pretty much exactly the same. If you are a super demanding keyboard player and a professional user, definitely get the S49. You will not regret it. You can't go wrong with that. This is the ultimate holy grail keyboard. Like, you buy this one and you will not need another keyboard for a while, because there is really nothing better that you can buy on the market. There are other alternatives like Novation's SL3 Mark II, which is again a similar premium keyboard, and it has some different features. It's definitely not the same as the S series, but definitely when it comes to premium keyboards and for like buy and forget it keyboards that you will not need to upgrade anytime soon, the S series is the one. And of course, if you want 88 keys, real piano keyboard, the S88 would be a great option as well. Or also, like I said, if you want a keyboard that is good for playing drums, as I found out that the A series is slightly too deep to be able to play drums easily. You can still do that, but it's kind of not really that great for drums. So thank you so much for watching the video, guys. Hope the video was useful. Drop a comment down below and let me know which one you prefer, which one you have and which one you plan to buy. Of course, let me know if you have any questions about the keyboards. I'll be in the comments answering them if you have any, and I hope to see you in the next video.